All right, let's dive right in. It's Wednesday, November 12th, 2025, and we're going to break down all the key moves happening in the stock market. So, what's really driving things today? Let's get to it. If you just glance at the market, it might look pretty quiet. Earnings season is basically wrapped up for most companies. But don't let that fool you. It's kind of like the ocean, calm on the surface, but underneath, there are some really powerful currents pushing and pulling a handful of key stocks. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with fintech and crypto, then do a little checkup on digital health. After that, we'll hit some major moves in prop tech, run through a few consumer and media highlights, and then wrap it all up with a big takeaway for the day. Okay, let's jump into our first section, fintech and crypto. And what's going on here is pretty fascinating. It's really a tale of two different stories. You've got some companies getting big upgrades, while the rest of the market is facing some serious headwinds. The biggest buzz today? It's gotta be Affirm. Remember how they absolutely crushed their earnings report last week? Well, the good news just keeps on coming. Seeking Alpha just put out this super positive analyst report. They're literally calling it a leader is born. And they've upgraded the stock. That's the market giving them a huge vote of confidence. And this really shows you the split we were just talking about in fintech. On one side, you have Affirm just soaring after that great earnings report. And on the other, well, there's Upstart. They're still struggling with the fallout from their earnings miss last week. It's a classic tale of two companies, same industry, on totally different paths right now. Okay, so what about the crypto-related stocks? We're talking Coinbase, Robinhood, Block. They're all down today, but here's the thing. It's not because they did anything wrong. Nope. They're just getting dragged down by the whole crypto market. The big reason? Bitcoin just dropped below its 200-day moving average. Now, for traders, that's a huge deal. It's kind of like a major warning sign. So these stocks are basically caught in the current, getting pulled down by the tide no matter how well they're paddling. All right, next up, let's do a quick checkup on digital health. And we're seeing a similar theme here. It's all about the market still chewing on those earnings reports from the past couple of weeks. So this chart really lays it all out. First, you've got Teladoc. Oof, it's down almost 9% today. The big worry there is a slowdown in its BetterHelp division. But then, look at Hims&Hers. They're seeing awesome growth, and there's all this buzz about a potential partnership for Wegovy. That's a huge deal. And finally, there's Doximity. This is a classic beat and lower situation. What's that mean? Well, they had great results for the last quarter, but their forecast for the next quarter was a little weaker than expected. And boom, the stock drops. It's just a perfect reminder that Wall Street is always looking forward, not backward. Okay, moving on to prop tech. And folks, there are some major moves happening here. We're talking big financing deals, new forecasts, and even some impressive new highs. It gets a little complex, but it's super important stuff. Okay, before we dive into the big news from Opendoor, we gotta quickly talk about something called a warrant. So what is it? Just think of it like a special coupon from the company itself. It gives you the right to buy their stock at a fixed price for a certain amount of time. You don't have to use it, but the option is there. Companies use them all the time to kind of sweeten the deal for investors. So with that in mind, check out what Opendoor just did. It's a two-part play. First, they gave these coupons, these warrants, to everyone who already owns their stock, kind of like a bonus dividend. But then, part two, they announced they're selling a huge chunk of new shares, about 180 million of them. What's the big picture? They're raising a ton of cash, probably for growth, while also giving a little something back to their loyal shareholders. It's a pretty savvy move, and definitely one we need to keep an eye on. And speaking of stocks to watch, you've absolutely got to have CoStar Group on your radar for today. Seriously, they're presenting at a big conference, and you can bet the entire prop tech world is listening in. Anything they say about their business or their outlook could really move the stock. So yeah, stay tuned on that one. And while we're on the topic of homes, let's talk about Wayfair. Wow, they are on an absolute tear. The stock just rocketed to a new 52-week high of over $109. That's a huge sign of some serious momentum. Okay, time for a quick rapid-fire round. Let's hit some key highlights from the consumer and media space. First up, Celsius Holdings. They just got the green light for a massive $300 million share buyback program. Now, their stock took a bit of a hit after earnings, so this move, it's the company basically saying, hey, we think our stock is a bargain right now, and we're putting our money where our mouth is to prove it. Next, let's compare two consumer favorites. You've got Dutch Bros, and the analysts are just loving them right now, calling it a solid buy after their fantastic sales growth. But then you look at On Holding, the sneaker company. An analyst over at Truist is tapping the brakes just a little. They still like the stock. It's still a buy, but they've trimmed their price target, which is a sign of some caution. Here's a quick one, but it's a big deal. An investment firm called X Square Capital just revealed that they've doubled their investment in the insurance tech company Lemonade. When you see a big investor make a move like that, it's a huge vote of confidence. And let's not forget about Netflix. Even though their 10-for-1 stock split was back at the end of October, the buzz is still going strong. Money is still flowing into the stock because of it, and people are still talking. It just goes to show you how a big move like that can create momentum that really lasts. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. What's the bottom line? Let's wrap this all up by looking at the day's biggest winners, key movers, and the stocks you really need to be watching. So here it is, all in one place. Your top stories of the day are Affirm getting that huge upgrade, Opendoor making some massive financial moves, and, of course, Wayfair hitting that new high. The key updates you shouldn't forget: Celsius and their big buyback, the great vibes around Dutch Bros, and that lingering momentum for Netflix. And for your watch list, definitely keep an eye on CoStar's presentation, see if any more news drops about Hims and Wegovy, and, well, we've got to see if crypto can finally shake off this downturn. And that really leaves us with the big question of the day, right? Now that earnings season is winding down, what's going to drive the market? Is it going to be these individual company stories like the ones we saw with Affirm and Opendoor? Or are the big, broad trends like what's happening in crypto going to be the thing that calls the shots? It's something to think about for sure. Thanks for tuning in.